Yo, people, welcome back. It's Tyme London, straight from Uganda. Just wanted to make this video for you guys to give you guys some new updates that are happening here in Uganda. So you have to listen carefully, and hopefully you're gonna stay tuned and watch this whole video all the way to the end because this is very important. It's probably one of the most important videos I've ever made. So if you're here and you clicked on this video, you have to stay till the end, especially if you're planning, if you or anybody you know is planning on traveling to Uganda anytime soon. So you have to pay attention and listen to everything I have to say. So let's go. Right, so recently I just traveled back to Uganda. I've been here a few days, right? And a few things have changed since I was last here a few months ago. Now, when I was leaving Uganda last time, it was a bit different. So when I left here in Uganda last time, everybody who was leaving, depending on wherever you're going, even if you're, wherever you're going, Europe, Asia, or another African country, if you were leaving Uganda a few months ago, everybody still had to test for C19. So you still had to have your PCR certificate when you're exiting Entebbe here in Uganda, right? Depending on wherever you're going. So fast forward now, right? So I left here, well, let's back up a little bit. I left last time a few months ago. I still had to test for C19 and I was going back to England, right? So even though by the time I left here in England, I didn't really need to produce this PCR certificate when I landed back at Heathrow in England, I still had to produce it here at Entebbe when I was leaving, right? So I done that and I left and I went back to England. So fast forward now, I flew in a few days ago, right? Things have changed, right? So again, when you're leaving England, if you're fully vaccinated and you've had both of your jabs, you don't need to, when you're leaving England and you're going wherever you're going, it all depends where you're going. So maybe if you're traveling to a country that still requires you upon arrival to have a PCR certificate, they'll tell you when you're leaving England, Heathrow. So follow me, guys, this is very important. So this time round, I was coming back here to Uganda. I didn't need to test for C19, all right? When I was coming here, I didn't need to because they've changed the rules when you're arriving here in Uganda. If you're fully vaccinated, wherever you're coming from, as long as you've got your certificate for both of your vaccinations, you produce that at the airport when you land here, together with your passport and your yellow fever booklet. That's all you need while you when you enter here in Uganda, when you arrive at Entebbe, right? So when I was leaving my country in London, when I was leaving Heathrow, I didn't need to produce my PCR certificate or whatever. They just asked me, hey, do you have your e-visa? Do you have your certificate, your vaccination certificate? And that was that really when I was, flying out. When I landed here in Uganda at Entebbe Airport, it was the same thing. All I needed to produce was my vaccination certificate and my yellow fever booklet. That's what they asked me for, and then they let me go through to immigration to get my visa, right? So those are the new guidelines. When you're coming here at Entebbe, depending on where you're flying, in from, you do not need to be testing for COVID normal. You don't need to produce a PCR certificate here when you arrived here at Entebbe. That's what's happening now. But this is important. It all depends on what kind of airline you're using, all right? Because, for example, in my case, I was traveling with Qatar Airlines, right? So if you're traveling on Qatar Airlines, if you're flying from London, they always make a stop in Qatar at Doha, right? So we always transfer in Qatar before catching our next flight that brought us here to Uganda, right? So when you're flying with Qatar, when you're going to Qatar or going to Doha, they don't require you to test for PCR. But again, you might be using a certain airline that requires you to have your PCR certificate if you're landing in that certain country, if you're going to transfer in that country. I'll give you an example, right? One of my sisters flew from London to come to Uganda using Rwanda Airline or Rwanda Air. And from London, you make a stop in Kigali and then you transfer from there and then you fly from Kigali to here, right? But she still needed to test for C19 when she was leaving England, even though she was fully vaccinated. So you guys, if you're booking your flights, depending on what kind of airline you're using and what country you're going to be transferring in, that airline might still require you to test for C19. So you have to be really careful when you're booking your flights. So when you do, ask your booking agency, or even call up the actual airline itself and ask them, hey, listen, when I'm traveling from here, depending where you're traveling from, if I'm flying out from here and I'm, transferring in your country, in this country, blah, 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 using this airline, do I still require to test for C19 when I'm traveling? And then they'll give you that information, because you don't really, when I get to the airport, when you're about to fly out and you're ready, you're about to check in, and they tell you, hey, listen, have you tested for C19? And then you're there like, wait, what? I'm fully vaccinated. So make sure when you're booking for your holidays or your travels, wherever you're going, make sure you check with the actual airline or your booking agency and ask them for that, because depending on where you're flying out from, like again, in my case, I was using Qatar Airways from London to Uganda. When you're using Qatar Airways, Qatar Airlines, you don't really need to test for C19. Do you know what I'm saying? So it all depends on what kind of airline you're using and what country you're going to stop at, because obviously in my sister's case, she was making a stopover in Rwanda, and in Rwanda they still have those strict rules where you still have to produce your C19 certificate when you land, your PCR, when you land in there before you fly out. So you have to be careful when you're traveling, right? That's one. Two, when you're flying out from here, last time when I was flying out from here, they still required me to test for C19, right? When I was flying out. This time around, you still have to, because again, my sister was leaving here. And again, it all depends on what kind of country you're going to be making a stopover. Because again, remember, like I just said, when she was flying in, she stopped over in Rwanda. It will be the same process. So if she's leaving Uganda to go back to London, when they leave Uganda, they're going to land into Kigali in Rwanda before they transfer again to go to London. So even when she was leaving, she was still required to test for C19, to have a PCR certificate, to fly out here from Uganda to go back to London. Even though in London, she's not required to produce a PCR certificate when she's fully vaccinated. But because she's using Rwandair and they're gonna land in Kigali in Rwanda, she needed it. So this is why I make these kind of videos for you guys, so that you're, to give you this kind of information, because you might be confused. You might be thinking, wait, from London, they're not asking me for PCR when I'm traveling or when I'm coming back. But why when I'm leaving Uganda or when I'm leaving this country, they're still telling me to test? These things are different. Each country is different, so different rules for different countries. So if you choose to use that country's airline, it's their rules, so you're gonna have to follow them. So that's why I make these videos for you guys, so that you guys can, understand all the new updates, travel updates, in case you get to the airport and you're kind of like, you're pissed off kind of thing. So yeah, that's that. So to make it clear, testing for PCR when you're coming to Uganda, it all depends on what kind of airline you're using and what country you're gonna stop in to make your transfer before coming to Uganda. So at Entebbe, when you're landing here at Entebbe, they don't require you to produce it. But if you're traveling and you're making a stopover in a certain country that requires you to, like Rwanda, which my sister landed into, then you might still need to test when you're coming and when you're leaving Uganda as well. So I hope you guys understand that, because in my case, when I was leaving London, when I was coming, I didn't need to test for C19 no more. I didn't need to produce my PCR certificate upon arrival, because I was using Qatar Airways. And when we were transferring in Qatar, they don't require you to do that while you're fully vaccinated. So I hope that's very clear. Okay, that's number one. Number two, this is the most important thing, guys. That's why I wanted you guys to watch all this video all the way to the end, right? There's something going on here in Uganda, right? A few weeks ago, or a month or so ago, or a few months, I'm not really sure, right? So you're flying in, right? From wherever you're coming from, right? If you are planning to fly into Uganda, if you don't already know this, there's a law they passed a few weeks ago or a few months, don't quote me, for all Ugandan passport holders. So if you're out there outside of Uganda and you hold a Ugandan passport, the old passport, I believe it's black, the actual Ugandan passport. No, this is what they changed, right? There's a few, you're gonna get into problems when you come to Uganda, because if you haven't upgraded your passport to the East African passport, the blue one, then you might be in trouble when you come to Uganda. Now, you're probably wondering, what kind of trouble? This is what happens, right? You're allowed to fly into Uganda with the old passport, the black one, right? You're allowed to fly in, and they'll welcome you at Entebbe Airport. You're returning home, right? They'll welcome you into the country. They'll allow you to pass through through immigration and enter the country. But you cannot leave Uganda with the old passport no more. Once you arrive here, if you don't upgrade your passport to the new East African passport, they will not allow you to pass through immigration at Entebbe when you're leaving Uganda with the old passport. So this is what happens, right? And in a way, it's kind of mad because I was looking at it. It happened to somebody that I know. And look, she was leaving and she didn't know because, I don't know, for some reason, maybe she thought she could leave and then she would do it later. But she got to the airport and they told her, listen, you're not allowed to leave. Literally, they refused her to pass through immigration. Kind of weird, right? It's kind of like being detained, right? In Uganda, it's kind of weird, but those are the rules. And they passed them a month or so ago, or 2 or 3 months ago, I can't really remember. So a lot of people have upgraded their passports from the old Ugandan passports to the new East African passports. But if you're watching this right now and you're planning to travel to Uganda and you haven't upgraded your passport from the old Ugandan passport, the black one, I believe, to the new East African passport, which is blue, right? You can fly into Uganda if you want to, but you won't be able to leave with that old passport unless you fly in and then you upgrade your passport when you're here. But again, it could be a problem because that person I'm telling you about who was refused to fly out at Entebbe, she was trying to upgrade her passport, but apparently here at the passport office or whatever, they ran out of booklets, so they couldn't, print any more passports at the time. So seriously, you can't make this stuff up. That's what happened. So she had to stay longer than she anticipated. First of all, she wasn't able to fly out because she's got old passport. When she tried to upgrade to a new East African passport so she can fly out, they told her at the passport office they ran out printing books, so she had to wait. Crazy, right? Again, guys, that's why you guys should be subscribed to this channel, because I'm always going to give you this important information. You might be there, or you might know somebody who was planning to travel to Uganda with an old passport, and then if you watch this, you might tell them, hey, listen, something has changed in Uganda. You need to upgrade your passport, or when you get there, make sure you upgrade your passport to the new East African passport before you can fly out of Uganda. Otherwise, you might get in trouble. So this is why I'm always making these videos for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumb up. Give it a like, and obviously so that YouTube can, push it around and show it to other people. Somebody else might find it, useful as well. So yeah, this is why I really wanted to make this video for you guys. So most important thing, if you're traveling to Uganda with that old Ugandan passport, you can fly in, but you might not be able to, well, actually not even might, you won't be allowed to fly out no more with that old passport. If you fly in, if you choose to, you can fly in and then upgrade your passport when you arrive here, because now they want everybody to be using the East African passport. Now, it's not a bad idea. I think it's a great idea, because if you have the East African passport, it allows you to go to all the East African countries without a visa, I believe. So it's a good thing. It gives you easy access to all the East African countries. So I believe it's a great thing. But what I just didn't like is letting people fly in with the old passport and then not being able to fly out with the old passport. That's my opinion anyway. Feels like you're being detained. But anyway, rules are rules. That's why I make these videos, to keep you guys up to date with all the changes when I'm in the country, so that you guys don't run into these kind of problems when you do arrive. So yeah, just to recap again, when you're flying into Uganda nowadays, you don't need to test for C19 if you're fully vaccinated, depending on what kind of airline you're using. Because if you're transferring in a certain country like Rwanda, Kigali, you still need to test for that. They still ask for it when you're landing in Kigali, when you're transferring to come to Uganda. But depending on what kind of airline you're using, if you're using any other airlines that might not require you to, then you don't need to, because they don't ask for PCR test certificates when you land here in Uganda anymore at Entebbe. As long as you're fully vaccinated and you have your vaccination certificates, you're good to go. So you produce your vaccination certificate, your yellow fever booklet, like that looks like this, when you land here at Entebbe, and your passport, and then you go through to immigration and you get your visa. Again, visas are still have to be applied 4 online. So you come with your certificate of your e-visa that you received when your application is approved online, and then you fly in to Uganda. When you reach immigration, you give them that that paper that you printed off, which is like a receipt to show that you paid for it. And then at the airport, at immigration here at Entebbe, that's when they stamp your passport and give you your proper visa to enter the country. So that's that. So yeah, Tyme London. I hope you watched this all the way to the end. Share this video, man. Somebody might want, but somebody might be planning on traveling to Uganda and they might not know what's going on. But share this video so that when they watch this, they know exactly what's required when they fly into Uganda. Tyme London coming straight from Uganda. More videos coming. Subscribe, like, share the vid, and all of that good stuff. More videos coming from Uganda. Trust me, I'm out here getting busy. All right, then. Catch you on the next one. Brrrah.